Hey guys, back again with another video, a review on Ratchet and Clank for the PS4, and this is a reimagining of the first game on PS2. It's not, I don't want to call it a remake, and they've called it kind of like a reboot or a reimagining in interviews, and it's one of those weird games that's not quite a remake. It's definitely not a remaster, but it's changed quite a few things from the original game. And obviously one of the jokes with like the marketing is that it's the game based on the movie based on the game. Because the story, from what I understand, is similar to the upcoming movie. I think it might be upcoming. Actually, it might already be out at the time of the review of this review, but I don't have any interest in seeing the movie. I always had interest in playing this game, though, because the original series has always been compared to Jet Force Gemini, and after playing this game, yeah, there's a lot of similarities. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever that Insomniac took inspiration from that game. But yeah, let's jump into the review. It's kind of going to be interesting because I've never played a Ratchet and Clank game before. I thought this was going to be the perfect time to jump in, and I'm glad I did. I had a good time with this game. I think it's quite enjoyable. It's not perfect. There are some things that bothered me, and I felt like I kind of liked it less as I went on because of a few different design decisions and this stealth segment towards the end. But we'll start with story, and I'm just going to be brief here. It's kind of your typical save the world storyline. Obviously, it's a little more complex than that, but they've really gone for a Pixar type feel with this game, with its cutscenes, its characters, and its sense of humor. But I actually feel like the humor kind of falls flat most of the time. I didn't find the game to be all that funny. There's a lot, it's pretty self-aware. There's like fourth wall breaking, and it knows it's a video game, so there's a few jokes like that are kind of funny, but most of the humor I thought was kind of childish and just not funny. There's a few characters I did like. I liked the Captain Quark character, who's kind of like the character that's considered a hero throughout the universe, but really he's a wuss, and it's really Ratchet who's the main hero. And he's a kind of character type that you've seen before in a lot of movies, especially Pixar films. But he was enjoyable. I liked him. But in Ratchet and Clank, I kind of liked the relationship. Apparently, the original game, the story is actually quite different in that, and there's more of a the story takes longer to get going, and there's more character growth. Apparently the characters didn't like each other all that much in the beginning of the first game, but in this game, Ratchet and Clank like each other right off the bat when they meet each other, so that's a little weird. I can't say I enjoyed the storyline. I thought it was, I don't know, like I said, the humor kind of fell flat, and I wasn't totally invested. There are some moments here and there that I enjoyed, but I was mostly playing this game for the gameplay, and I think that's really this game's strength. So I will move right into the gameplay. From what I understand, this game is actually a lot shorter than the original. This game only took me like 10 hours to get through, where the original is supposed to be 15. And it's always been considered a platformer, the entire series, but playing this game, I don't know if I would consider it a platforming series. Now, I know a lot of levels were removed in this remake from the first game, and maybe there was more platforming in the first game, but I would consider this like a third-person action game, really, with some light puzzle-solving elements. Basically, the structure, you're kind of moving from planet to planet. There are a few areas of the game where there's like some non-linearity, where you can choose between a couple different planets to visit, and you'll have these objectives that will pop up, and you're kind of going from point A to point B, kind of destroying all the enemies that are in your way. And then sometimes you'll switch to a section where you play as Clank, and you'll kind of have these little robots that you have to use to like make bridges and power up these devices. And it's you basically solve light puzzles in those sections. There's not too many of them, but I gotta say, I didn't enjoy those sections all that much. I've never been a fan of puzzle games or puzzles in games, really, with some exceptions, like the Zelda series, for instance. But I thought these sections were really boring, and towards the end, they just started to get a little tedious for my liking. I just kind of wanted to get back into the action with Ratchet. So, yeah, some people are probably going to enjoy those and might find them like a nice change of pace from the rest of the game. But I honestly would have liked the game more if they were just cut and more actual levels were put in. But you're visiting all these different planets, and yeah, you're just basically you know, there's just a lot of action, basically. And the big thing with this series has always been the array of weapons that you get. And yeah, for really fantastic weapons here. A lot of them kind of fit into certain archetypes that we've seen plenty of times in other shooters. You have your sniper rifle, you have your shotgun, you have your kind of assault rifle, but they all have their own little twists to them. The shotgun, for instance, is called the Pixelizer, and I'm pretty sure this is the only new weapon added for this remake, where you basically turn the enemies into pixels. And it's really good close range, and that's a really cool weapon to use. There's also a weapon that turns enemies into sheep, and yeah, it's just, the weapons are so fun to use. There's strafing in the game where you're kind of moving left to right and jumping to avoid attacks. The original game apparently did not have strafing, and that's crazy to me. I can't imagine the series without it, because it's one of the aspects to the game I really enjoyed, and the controls in general are just really tight. The game just feels great. It feels great shooting things. When you kill enemies, all these bolts fly out, and you're always destroying things with your melee attacks in the environment to get more bolts. Your bolts are used to buy more weapons at the shop terminals that you'll find. There's a cool weapon upgrade system where you're kind of, it's like almost like a sphere grid of sorts, where you're kind of activating different nodes with these crystals that you'll find throughout the environments. And these will give you different upgrades for your weapon. You can fully upgrade weapons, and if you use a weapon enough, they level up and get stronger. So some of these upgrades might be more ammo, more damage, and if you kind of surround an orange question mark node with a bunch of other nodes, you'll get like a hidden upgrade for these weapons. So the upgrade system is really fun to experiment. It's far more in-depth than I was expecting, and that combined with just how good the shooting in this game feels, and just how many enemies are on screen and all the different interesting enemy types you'll have to fight, it's just a really fun game. I had a total blast with this game. Now, there are some aspects to it that were kind of annoying. There's boss fights in this game. There's not too many, but they were kind of a slog. They're basically damage sponges, at least on the normal difficulty, and you're basically just dodging their attacks. You're figuring out their attack patterns and dodging them. There's no actual gimmicks to these fights, and I almost kind of wish that there were, or at least that there was a little something more than just shooting them over and over again until they died. You're just unloading all your weapons on them until they're dead. So yeah, I wasn't a fan of the boss fights. The final boss fight changes things up a bit. There's actually a bit of a pattern to them, and you have to learn it. You have to like use your jetpack at some points during that fight. So that was kind of cool. I didn't mind the final boss so much, but the other boss battles, I wasn't too crazy about them. Like I said before, not too much platforming in this game. In fact, there's hardly any. You can jump, and you can do a double jump, and there's some jetpacking sections, but there's not any actual platforming to speak of, which I actually almost kind of wish instead of the Clank sections you had like just actual platforming. Because even though it's this 3D platform, the type of game that we haven't got in years, and we just don't get very much these days, a big element of those games back in the past was platforming, and there's just not much here. And Jet Force Gemini, one of my favorite games, there was a lot of platforming in that game. Also, the exploration in this game isn't amazing. All the levels are fairly linear. There are some side paths that you'll kind of find that will lead you to some optional stuff. There's golden bolts that you can find that will unlock cheats, which that's really cool that cheats are in a game in 2016. There's some mini games that you'll find that can give you nice rewards. I wasn't a fan of the mini games though. There's this hoverboarding mini game that's just not fun. There's like a lock-picking minigame of sorts, like a hacking minigame, that it was just not fun for me, but luckily you can skip them. And the hoverboard section, there's only 2 races that you have to do. The rest of them are optional, so not so much of a big deal there. There's a collectible card system that's new for this remake where you get sets of cards from killing enemies, and if you get like a full set of cards, you can your weapons will get a little stronger. There's also a challenge mode once you beat the game, which is kind of like a New Game Plus, where you're kind of getting multipliers to get more bolts, and you get all your weapons carry over into this mode. And I didn't test it too much, but it seems like a cool version of New Game Plus. As much as I enjoyed the game, I don't see myself playing it again. It was a fun game, but the mini games, the boss fights, and this really terrible stealth section at the end, which just, as I've said before, I hate stealth sections in non-stealth games, and this game has one, and the rules are so rigid and so strict It really pissed me off, and if not for that section, I would probably like this game a lot more, but I know it's just like this minor section towards the end, but I don't know, it just really bugged me, that section. So yeah, gameplay-wise, it's a really fun game. It's really enjoyable. Visuals, looks amazing. This game is gorgeous. The environments are just stellar. They really do feel like these alien planets. There's so much like detail in these environments. You're seeing all these ships in the background flying throughout the area. All these buildings in the background. Everything's all really dense and detailed. The character models look amazing. The frame rate is super smooth, 30 FPS, and I basically noticed no frame rate drops. So yeah, nothing to complain about with the visuals. Being such a short game, you can tell it's a lower budget game. It's a $40 game in the US. So you could tell they spent a lot of their time on the graphics, and it paid off. I think this game looks amazing. The cutscenes look really good too. Soundtrack is surprisingly good in terms of the audio. I actually was pleasantly surprised with the soundtrack. There's some catchy melodic tunes in here that I really liked. Some more fast-paced, energetic songs when you're really into the combat and you're fighting like a bunch of enemies at once. The sound effects are all great too. The voice acting is exceptional from what I heard. Like another thing too with this game, the challenge is pretty good too. Like this game's not an easy game. You know, for a game that seems like it's aimed towards kids, I died quite a bit. It's certainly not an easy game, and maybe that's because I upgraded my weapons equally, and I should have focused on weapons that I liked and fully upgraded them. But I don't know. I like just using all the different varieties of weapons. Now, one thing with this game, I think I enjoyed it so much because I haven't played a game like this before. I haven't played a game in the series. For those that have played the original and most of the games in the series, I'm curious though. I'm not sure if people like that are going to enjoy this that much. I would have to say yes. If you love this series, you'll probably love this game. But from what I understand, there's not a whole lot new added. Like the weapon upgrade system is from newer games in the series. But really, I think the Pixelizer is the only new gun. All the guns you have in this game, you've seen before in other Ratchet and Clank games, and the locations are even, you've seen before as well. So, I don't know, it's probably going to feel a little, I don't know, I have to say, I just, a little mundane and safe, I think, for people that have already played a Ratchet and Clank game before, and especially the original. But I have to imagine that this game is just way better than the original and way more refined. But yeah, a very enjoyable game. I really enjoyed my time with it. I'm glad I bought it. And if a new Ratchet and Clank game comes out, I'm going to play it, and I'm actually going to probably try to go back to some of the older ones. Some people have been telling me that Going Commando and Up Your Arsenal on PS2 are really good. And there's like an HD collection, I think, for PS3, so I might try grabbing it. But yeah, that's it, guys. Shorter review, but definitely if you have a PS4, definitely consider picking it up. It's a really fun experience. But that's it, guys. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.